Are we live?
We are live.
Okay, excellent. So welcome everyone to this new webinar, the CyberBRICS project that this time is dedicated to digital governance in the BRICS countries. We have the great pleasure to have with us today two stellar special guests, Victoria Panova, who is professor at FEFU, Far Eastern Federal University of Russia, and she's also the scientific supervisor of the BRICS Expert Council and managing director of the National Committee of BRICS Research, and of course also a member of the board of the CyberBRICS project. Then we will be joined by Dr. Shen, also professor at Fudan University, where he also directs the Center for BRICS Studies and also the International Institution of Cyberspace Governance. And before we get started with the introductory remarks of Victoria and Shen, I would just like to spend a couple of words describing the work that we have been doing and how does this intersect with today's issues. So the CyberBRICS project has been dealing with several key pillars of digital policies over the past 2 years, mainly data protection and cybersecurity, internet access policies, and now digital transformation of the public sector in the BRICS countries. We have produced a quite considerable amount of research and also some updates through our CyberBRICS Observatory bulletin that we share every 2 months. We have just shared the latest issue that is available in Portuguese and English, where we describe many of the issues that we are going to discuss today and provide also some updates on key digital policies that have been elaborated by BRICS countries over the past months. Everything, of course, is available for free on our website, cyberbrics.info. And the first very important event dedicated to digital governance, and actually it is more a subset of digital governance, internet governance, is the Internet Governance Forum, a key multi-stakeholder forum that is organized under the auspices of the United Nations. The CyberBRICS team has very importantly participated to the IGF this year, not only to the debates. The IGF is frequently heralded as a talking shop, but there is also some ways of producing meaningful outputs of the IGF, and we actually have been working a lot in two of those outputs, this collection and research and opinions on the value of openness in times of crisis, and also this glossary of platform law and policy terms. Both are freely accessible in the outputs section of the IGF website. And it is important to note that these outputs are not only research or declarations that are produced and then published on websites, but they can really influence how digital governance, how digital policies are developed. And let me also share with you another example here that we elaborated a couple of years ago, describing how community networks, this new kind of initiatives to expand access in a collaborative fashion, have meaningfully influenced also Brazilian digital policy making. Only a couple of months ago, actually in the beginning of 2020, the Brazilian telecoms regulator, Anya, published resources on community networks using this output of the IGF that we elaborated a couple of years ago as an example, as guidelines to explain to anyone interested in this topic how to develop them and how they are regulated. And if we come back to the BRICS arena, the BRICS themselves can be considered an example of what in internet governance vernacular one would define enhanced cooperation. Enhanced cooperation is a term that is not very well defined, but has been included in the United Nations parlance through the Tunis Agenda of 2005, a founding document for internet governance and policy making. And it is the set of processes where governments on an equal footing carry out their roles and responsibility with regard to internet policy, public policy issues, but we could extend it to digital public policy issues. And this is exactly the kind of interpretation that BRICS countries seem to give to this kind of process. I have described this in a recent position paper that actually uses the data protection policy making as an example to illustrate this, and that I submitted as a contribution to the World Internet Conference organized the Chinese Academy of Cyberspace Studies, and we will publish more on this topic. And of course, everything is available in our website if you want to understand more the thinking behind this position paper. And actually, digital governance has emerged also as a key issue over the past years for the BRICS, also in their explicit positions and declarations. This is a fragment of the Ministry of Telecommunications declaration adopted in September, reaffirming the commitment to cooperate in digital governance, stressing the importance of data protection. And these issues have been also included, of course, in the outcomes of the recent BRICS Summit. I very much look forward to also discuss these outputs with Victoria in a couple of minutes. And these processes, this thinking is also very much integrated in the World Internet Conference organized, is a global conference led by the Chinese authorities and that took place only a couple of weeks ago. And these new initiatives on building a community with a shared future in cyberspace is a very interesting example that I would like to discuss with Shen on how this kind of conferences may lead to concrete actions and initiatives. Everything that we mentioned, well, besides the presentation of our guest speakers, of course, is available for free in the publication section of our website. So I very much invite you to check it, and also to check that our call for papers on digital sovereignty in the BRICS countries that will explore these three key areas: data, infrastructure, and services, and that aims at being a future step, completing the work that we started with this first book that is going to be released officially at the end of this month, beginning of 2021, and is already freely available, the open access version, on our website and on this mini URL, in case you are interested in having a very diverse analysis of cybersecurity regulations in the BRICS as a first step to then analyze the digital transformations of the BRICS and the concept of digital sovereignty explored by the BRICS countries. Now, having said, having provided this initial food for thought, I would like to invite our special guest, Victoria Panova, to provide some her thoughts, some remarks on the recent BRICS Summit that took place on the 17th of November, culminating with the adoption of the Moscow Declaration, and the role of digital cooperation, digital governance has acquired a pretty high profile in the BRICS document. So how is digital governance and digital cooperation envisaged by the BRICS leaders, and what, in your opinion, Victoria, are the next steps in this regard?
Thank you, Luca. It's a real pleasure and honor to be invited to be talking at your seminar. I'm really hoping for a really in-depth discussion with all the participants. And I can tell you this is indeed a very important topic that you're raising, and I'm extremely thankful to you for keeping alive and kicking this CyberBRICS project. Well, first of all, just a few words on the Russian chairmanship this year, it was quite difficult because almost from the very start, we ran into the problem that what we planned initially as a full-scale, almost 190 events to be held throughout the year, most of them had to be moved after end of February or early March into their online format. And this, in fact, on the one hand, did make it a bit more difficult. But on the other hand, it also, first of all, made it memorable to everyone, because this is definitely the first time, hopefully also the last year, for us to be meeting most of the time only via Zoom or other online platforms, including the summit itself. But it also allowed for us to enhance communication by a wider and larger amount of events to be held via Zoom. So there are pluses and minuses to that. Pluses also come from the fact that we had to realize how much we depend on the new technologies. And that is why the idea of cyber cooperation among BRICS, while having a special separate place, also was cross-cutting through all the areas of Russia's priority, be it politics and global governance, be it economy, finance and trade, be it people-to-people communication. And we witnessed really well how much we depend on the new technologies those days. I would not be saying that their area of cyber as it is, without cross-cutting to all the other areas with what I mentioned earlier, was a real breakthrough this year. What is important, though, I want to underline, and what we saw in the final declaration of the leaders, is that I think we have 4 points devoted to cyber. And importantly, we know that all the areas nowadays are extremely politicized. Cyber is being among the most politicized one. Even the areas that are usually not subject to politics, they are kind of under extreme pressure from everywhere, be it health, be it sports, be it humanitarian cooperation. Now everything is under pressure, unfortunately. And pandemics, and it was another effect, also made all the issues even more acute. Those who were latently arguable and with some degree of disagreement, they became outright contested. What is important, I think this was a real achievement, is that we are seeing this communication in the United Nations, and we saw the contested resolutions last year adopted one by Russia, one by United States, and both were adopted. And both established the formats on the open-ended working group and the governmental expert panel. And what is important, that BRICS, in fact, supported both, and BRICS could be serving as a centerpiece for providing for their fruitful work and constructive work within the both platforms. And be kind of serving as a kind of beacon for both, even when countries from the West are not willing to do so. So I think this is an important achievement when we talk about that. Another one is also, we are talking about increased role for their e-commerce. And this was also touched upon in the final declaration, and of the need for the BRICS to be talking together about their joint standards, joint rules, and new areas that come along with it. And of course, privacy. Data privacy is an extremely important area. I think we have to continue talking about that. And it's important that BRICS even outline separately the one on child safety, because children are now very vulnerable and exposed to sometimes very adverse internet content. So we're also talking about economic governance. So we can also discuss on the developments which are reflected in their economic partnership strategy.
Yes, Victor, this is a very key point, and really, I really would like to spend a couple of minutes on this, because it is very important, the release of this new strategy for BRICS Economic Partnership 2025, and digital economy is one of the three key pillars of the strategy. So we, of course, there has been a lot of debate on digital issues over the past years in BRICS circles, but the prominence that it has acquired this year with a specific pillar, one of only three pillars dedicated to digital economy, is pretty interesting to analyze. So what are your key takeaways from the strategy regarding digital economy?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, this is a second economic partnership strategy, and the first one was adopted back in 2015 at UFA Summit, and in fact it had some ICT cooperation aspects in it covered, but they were one of many and scattered in a way with the other cross-cutting issues. And here you're very right, it was singled out as a separate chapter, only one of three pillars. What is important is that as a result of the previous partnership, we tried as an expert council, we made an evaluation of what's been done in all areas and how much progress were achieved under that. And I can tell you that probably one of the reasons, but one of the main reasons, and of course us not being the most important, but the most important being their overall developments of digital economy and the center of knowledge economy for the fourth industrial revolution for the well-being of our countries. But we've been conducting this overview evaluation, and we found out that with all their positive steps that's been taken in ICT area by BRICS, we found ourselves only in initial stages of their of such cooperation. Yes, we have their part of it of partner. We have established Digital BRICS Task Force. We have launched the BRICS Institute of Future Networks. We held annual IT forums on BRICS and Shanghai Cooperation Organization, etc. There were a number of institutes and platforms launched, but so far we saw at the same time that ICT area was found in a very initial stages, and still not much could be seen as a progress. Yes, indeed, it is true that in fact, Brazil and Russia are in the top. Even if you compare to their most tech-savvy China, if you look at the index like ICT Development Index that is developed by TU, and the e-governance index, Russia and Brazil are among the leaders. So, and I had in terms of BRICS, and we could say that a number of initiatives that were launched thanks to their strategy also allowed each of the country to rise with a different degree, but up along the ladder. The problems that we still have, they do lie in the area that we are, each of the BRICS countries, we are in a very different stages of ICT development, very different stages of infrastructure penetration in each country. And that is why it is important not only to consider the issues that were part of this one of the three pillars in the new economic partnership strategy. This is digital transformation and industrial partnership and innovation. It is important to ensure that we have infrastructural development that is advanced and goes ahead of, let's say, global speed. So far, we had 2 NDB, New Development Bank projects that were devoted to ICT cooperation. And those were one for Brazil on fiber optic connectivity, and another one was on smart water management in China. But it is true that probably new development bank needs to be given, and countries need to be offering not only separate national but pentalateral projects that would be allowing for a faster ICT cooperation in this regard. And this is where I also want to single out, or let's say stress the importance of the partner and STI architecture that was launched last year during the Brazilian chairmanship, because it is something that would allow for joining together the industrial forces and the new technologies for our countries to be in the forefront of the development. So I would be saying that those are their main ideas coming from and evolving from the previous strategy to this new strategy.
And excellent points. And also, I think it stresses the very reason why we are keeping on having this CyberBRICS project and trying to expanding it as much as possible. The very reason that it is, there is a lot of potential for cooperation in the BRICS countries, which is unexploited, in my vision, because of the lack of coordinated study and proposals of digital policies, which is precisely what we aim at providing with this project. And besides this argument, there is a very last point that I wanted to discuss with you, Victoria, before we delve into the rest of the seminar, which is a very important event that took place last week in Russia. It was actually a virtual event as anything this year, but is the 2020 edition of the AI Journey, a massive conference dedicated to artificial intelligence. If I'm not mistaken, more than 25,000 people participated. The president of Russia, Vladimir Putin himself, participated in video conference, explaining some of the key points of the new Russian AI strategy. And so what are the key features of this AI strategy? And also, what is, in your impression, the relevance that the Russian government is giving to AI as a key technology?
Thanks so much. It's indeed very important. I think we also had President of Kazakhstan, not only Vladimir Putin, Russia's president, at this meeting, and you're right, it was over 25,000 people. I think it's of extreme relevance. AI is in the top of the agenda of all the leading nations. It's been advancing very fast, and a lot of resources are devoted to that, especially in the two main contender countries that are United States and China, and it's been like that for a long time. Russia is also trying to be in their to remain relevant in this realm. So there is a federal project, Digital Technology, and there was a roadmap, special roadmap for AI technology agreed end of last year. I think it was October. And then we have a special AI. So this AI roadmap is suggesting not very, let's say, not the most advanced figures, just 0.8% by 2024 and 3.6% of AI share in Russia's GDP by 2030. But at the same time, it's good that this finally there on the table, and that we have the national strategy for the development of AI up till 2030 approved by the president now. So what is the essence for, I will give probably 4 main points which should be considered and could be relevant not just for Russia, but for our cooperation within BRICS. First of all, what we need to discuss, and we had this exercise recently with UNESCO, but I think it's been kind of maybe not as, there were some troubles that some experts were pronouncing. So this is the ethics of AI. So we really need to understand what would be the norms and ethics of this new technology that could be seen as perceived as dangerous, and how and that the human have to be the ultimate one to control, even with the AI taking part of share of our lives. This is number one. Number two is we're talking, and this was also another takeaway from there, from this forum, is that we are talking about privacy and data privacy. This is one of the most important issues, and all of our countries need to be looking into this item. And I think this is this could be unfortunately used by both malware states, but mainly we are concerned about this being used for criminal activities. And this is something where I think there were some also statements taken in this regard by within this leaders' statement, and also it was discussed during their meetings of the working groups throughout the year. Another one would be on education. On the one hand, it's fourth industrial revolution, it's AI is the most advanced technology, but we have a human at the center. And we have to make sure that we are teaching our youth and also upgrading, training our more elder people in order to be up to relevant technologies. And this is where we suggested, for example, in this year, first time successfully held BRICS Math Olympiad. We have in Russia Sirius. This is for like a territory for young, talented youth. And this is where we can cooperate all together for the 5 countries and could share those options. We also understand that this wide developed network of math and physics schools, they are contributing to preparation of our young people to further master their skills. And I can tell you, as one of my affiliations is university, it is also, President also mentioned the relevance for all line of educational skills, not just for kids, but of course for the university students, and that this has to be AI studies and internet and cyber have to be introduced into their all programs, educational programs. And for example, what we are doing, we were I think the first in Russia who launched separate school of data economy. We are having 5 master's programs so far developed, and one of them included in AI, in artificial intelligence. And I think it is important that we also have network programs like that among the BRICS universities, be it within the BRICS network university or be it on bilateral or pentalateral level, just dependent on the thematic cooperation between us as partners. So I would say those are the main takeaways from the forum, and also how those could be applied to our cooperation with Brazil or with BRICS as a big 5.
Thank you very much, Victoria, for this excellent overview. I know that you have a very tight agenda, and you may have to leave us before the end of the seminar. So thank you very much if you can keep on staying with us until the end. If you will have to leave earlier, there is absolutely no problem. As I see that our second special guest has some technical problems to connect, I will just seize the opportunity of the fact that we are mentioning fourth industrial revolution, AI, risks of AI, to directly skip to Aaron Martin, who is also dealing with the China part of our project together with Wei Wang. And he has been studying how the AI regulation and the biometrics, which personal data and biometrics in particular are an essential fuel, if you want, of AI. And there has been a lot of buzz globally around the regulation of personal data in the context of biometrics and in the context of the use of biometrics for AI applications. And recently, China had some very relevant jurisprudential evolutions on these issues. Aaron, welcome, and please tell us more on this point.
Thank you, Luca, and thank you for having me again. Indeed, there's been a lot of excitement around the world around both biometrics, the sort of increased implementation of biometrics, but also both sort of the regulation of these technologies as society comes to understand what they do and how they work, as well as resistance to a lot of the different implementations. And most recently, the AI Now Institute, based in the US, published an international report, an extensive international report, which I will add is quite excellent, on regulating biometrics, which included lots of different case studies from different jurisdictions, including a case study of India, I will add, on biometrics and facial recognition and different approaches to legislating and regulating the technologies. Now, China was not a part of that report, which is unfortunate. And despite, I think, the widely held view that Chinese society is accepting of any and all forms of surveillance, including biometrics, a recent case reveals emerging forms of resistance and what seems to be an inclination to try to regulate some of these technologies in interesting ways. So in one of the first significant legal challenges to China's rapidly growing use of facial recognition technology, earlier this year, a university professor who was a member of a wildlife park sued the park for its use of facial recognition. And he did so because, according to him, it was a breach of contract. So when he at first signed his membership with the wildlife park, the understanding was that they would be using fingerprint-based technology to authenticate visitors to ensure that people were entering the park who had memberships. But he felt that the switch in technology from fingerprint systems to facial recognition was a breach of contract in this case.
Aaron, sorry to interrupt you, but I think you are sharing your screen, but not completely sharing. It is, we see on the screen just this signal that you started sharing the screen, but if you want to share, please go ahead. But
can you see the slide?
Yes, now we can perfectly see. Yes.
Wonderful. So I apologize for that. So yeah, so he sued the. It's just a picture. It's just something to look at. That's not my face on my desktop. I apologize. So he sued the park because of this change in the authentication technique. And just last month there was finally a decision from the court, and the court ruled in favor of the professor. So the court ruled that in fact this was a breach of the law, a breach of contract, and they decided to award the complainant, the professor, some monetary compensation, essentially paying back his membership from the previous year, as well as some additional compensation. And of course, I think the professor had hoped, according to his lawyer, the professor had hoped that the court would have ruled sort of more broadly around the sort of legitimacy of these technologies, the context in which these technologies are sort of appropriate for user authentication, because not all biometric systems are the same. There's an argument that says facial recognition can be used in ways that sort of permit or facilitate mass surveillance, that the user isn't always aware of the facial recognition that's ongoing, whereas with fingerprints, you have to engage with the sensor. You're much more aware of the authentication as it takes place. So the plaintiff had hoped that there would have been sort of a broader opinion on the facial recognition and its regulation, but the court didn't go that far. They essentially only ruled on the specific merits of his case. And his lawyer was quoted as saying that we hope this case will push our whole society to come up with a more refined definition of the boundaries of collecting information as sensitive as fingerprints and facial features. So for me, this is interesting, again, because there's this discourse, a fairly sort of popular discourse that, surveillance runs rampant in China and that its citizens don't care. I think this actually shows that the reality is much more complicated. And the fact that we have a sort of a court case to point to, in particular on biometrics and facial recognition, I think is an important moment in the sort of the sort of evolution of Chinese society's understanding and relationship to these tools. And as we discussed previously, China is in the process of updating its personal data protection law, which includes certain safeguards for biometrics and the use of facial recognition in public spaces. So it'll be very interesting to see how that unfolds and how that relates to this emerging jurisprudence in this context. Thank you, Luca.
Excellent. Yes, indeed. Last webinar we discussed this also this proposal of a new data protection law by China, and also this new global initiative on data security that was illustrated by Wei at our last webinar. Now, speaking about data protection, data regulation, data governance, our fellow Smriti Parsheera recently published an interesting paper on cross-border data access for law enforcement, which looks at this specific issue and what are the nuances around data access, and also with a critical stance on the stakeholders that are involved into this, and what type of governance mechanism are in place to coordinate this type of actions. So, Smriti, what is, in your view, India's strategy towards cross-border data for criminal investigations, and what are the governance sides of this most recent development?
Thank you. Thanks so much, Luca. I'm excited about this opportunity to talk about the paper that we released recently. This is work co-authored with Pratik Jha of Carnegie, India. And what we look at exactly, as you said, we look at the jurisdictional question around cross-border data access. And, as we know, any kind of interaction on the internet is inherently cross-border in nature. And, data access being one critical part of it. And the issue is that, as long as we don't solve these jurisdictional problems, countries are resorting to more intrusive kind of mechanisms to gain access to that data. So whether it's through data localization or other means which are about saying that, if your laws don't allow me to access this data, here is something I will do to mandate that data to be in my control. And in any kind of cross-border data request, typically it's not just the laws of the domestic country which will govern this, it's also the laws of the country where the other company is incorporated, it's laws of the countries where the data is stored. So it's very dispersed and a lot of set of laws apply. But in particular, because of a lot of the data is flowing through US, big tech companies, their laws become particularly important. And in this paper, we explore one particular legislation, which is the US Stored Communications Act, and the kind of restrictions that brings into place, when, for instance, law enforcement agencies in India want to gain access to a data which is held by, say, a Google or a Facebook, then the companies will get back and say that under our laws where we are incorporated, we are restricted from sharing any kind of content information with the local law enforcement authorities. And then the only mechanism currently available is that they have to go through the mutual legal assistance treaties route. And a lot of people have demonstrated that these treaties were really not designed for the kind of volume and the speed of information which is being expected as of today, because it was not thought of that the internet will blow up in such a way and there will be, almost every second transaction involves investigation, involves some kind of an element of cross-border access. So that is something which this paper speaks to. And as of now, the only route available to authorities in India is this MLAT route. And the way that works is that there is an agency designated in India, which is the Ministry of Home Affairs. And every investigation agency which wants information will go through that route. They make a domestic request. They will speak to their counterpart in the other country, procure the information as per the laws of the other country, and then pass it on and trickle down through the same route. And this process is known to take a lot of time, and Indian authorities have noted in several conversations that they feel that there is a resistance from the companies as well as from the other countries to get access to this data, and therefore we need alternatives. And globally, there is this move towards alternatives in the form of direct data access agreements. So India is not a party to these negotiations as of now, but it's already happening in the form of the US Cloud Act, for instance, which is the most notable example of such a model, where the US and UK have already entered into an agreement. They're negotiating with a couple of other countries. The Budapest Convention has provisions which is now under negotiations on direct data access by countries, where you basically can circumvent this whole process and directly go to the company, subject to pre-vetting of the countries within, they say, I'm fine with your legal regime, and therefore you can come directly to my company. And the issue with these kind of arrangements is, of course, that because you're eliminating a lot of due process, you're eliminating checks and balances, you basically have the company as the last guardian of privacy against abuse of a user's data, and it can be prone to abuse by law enforcement agencies. So what we do in the paper is we explore what are the kind of models that are coming up, and the models are very diverse in terms of some of them only deal with subscriber information, so your name, IP address maybe, and some go on to deal with your content information, including live content. So there is a diversity of approaches which is coming about here, and we say that you need proportionate checks and balances, given the kind of diversity of approaches which is coming here. But to really summarize, what we're trying to argue in the paper is that before you go for any kind of direct access and talk about international agreements, you need to fix your domestic law enforcement regime. You need to do surveillance reform domestically, because the kind of arrangements and the kind of discussion we've seen around the privacy shield and that being struck down, it's very clear that if the other jurisdiction has excessive law enforcement powers, no country is going to be comfortable entering into bilateral or multilateral arrangements with you, where it's believed that your authorities have way too much power over data. So what we recommend is that the first leg has to necessarily be to bring India's legal regime in line with the right to privacy judgment, which our Supreme Court has passed. And then going from there, we need to think about a strategy. Although we are not on the negotiating table on any direct agreement right now, we need to have a strategy beforehand, so that no one can force a particular model down someone's throat. You need to have a multi-stakeholder kind of body which thinks about these issues both from the privacy as well as from the law enforcement perspective, from the company's perspective, so that you don't have things which are too intrusive in terms of compliance. And that's that conversation is what we recommend is the takeaway from this paper.
Excellent, Smriti. This is a very interesting insight, and especially reminds us also that India is in the process of developing a new data protection law, which is in the pipelines since some time now, and everyone is always waiting for the new development of the data protection saga in India, and we very much look forward to know more about this. And speaking about data protection sagas, let's move now to Brazil, where the data protection saga has been extremely exciting, and with a lot of surprises over the past months, if not a couple of years. We finally have the announcement of the director that have been appointed, announced by the presidency and confirmed by the Congress. So we have a national data protection regulator with a directorate that is now creating all the team that then will have to implement the LGPD, the new Brazilian data protection law. We even had the pleasure to host one of the directors, Miriam Wimmer, at our seminar on data protection in America a couple of weeks ago. Larissa Galdino, what is going to be the impact of this new authority in the Brazilian digital economy, as we have mentioned this also in the context of the BRICS. So if we focus now, if we narrow our focus on Brazil, what do you think is going to be the impact of the new data protection authority? I think you are, your mic is muted, sir.
Yes. I'm sorry. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here again. Yes, Luca, the National Personal Data Authority appears to be advancing, understand the relationship between digital economy and data exploration. First, to ensure the country into the digital economy, and second, to provide the legal certainty for database business model. However, the economic scenario is worrying. The digital economy is highly dependent of the efficient data transmission. And with this scenario, the National Telecommunication Agency, Anatel, presented a recent study about market and economic regulation of the sector. And the extraction of values of data address the need to implement an efficient, security, and optimization data, the infrastructure, and at the same time, more and more training data provide segmentation and exponential growth of the platforms. But if you enter the communication sector market in Brazil and the infrastructure market, it depends on the investment to attract more investment. And the comparison in other countries, Brazilian operator invests significantly, but the market doesn't respond the same extent. In fact, the Brazilian market retraining around 9%, and with 5G, and the investment need to be even greater. And the comparison between operators revenue and investment is imbalanced too. Not that the investment in the infrastructure have their direct impact on the speed and the quality of data transmission. In addition, there is necessary to be more flexibility and about the regulation to facilitate the sharing of the networks in Brazil. So the balance between the investment regulation is reflect the operation choice about the data flow. And you can maybe assume the barriers to competitiveness have the indirect impact on the privacy, because the telecommunication are data providers in Brazil, and any chance or sharing or request is the responsibility of the National Personal Authority here. And if you look at for the numbers about the country, the report about digital competitiveness and in the countries of BRICS, you can see you have the potential to direct effect on digital markets. Because in the comparison with the country, the large platforms, in fact, the main owners of the most website access. So the question is about the privacy. The introduction, the chain of the values of data can affect by the practice of data, and therefore it's increasingly important to consolidate for the personal data and protection in Brazil. And the question is, the business models maybe become more sophisticated, and you provided the privacy be compromised. So the questions for the authority thinking right now.
Thank you very much, Larissa, for your also making this bridge between the protection of data protection and digital transformation. There has been recently also a OECD evaluation report on telecommunications and digital transformation in Brazil. It also tries to connect the dots between the need for infrastructure and also the characteristics of the digital economy, where, yes, a focus on infrastructure has to be met also with focus on data, the report, the evaluation report released by the OECD a couple of weeks ago on Brazil is very useful for us, for our study. So what are the main findings of this report?
Yes, I just want to highlight some outcomes, some important outcomes about the report of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in Brazil. And it's a report about digital economy and access infrastructure here. And yes, you have the significant recent years, you have the significant progress, but the challenges remain. And you have the recommendations about the organization is you need to expand the infrastructure and broadband here, reduce the tax and fees, and adapt the regulation. And the most important I want to emphasize is about the efficient use of the data transmission spectrum, because as you can see here, the concentration in operating market in Brazil, and this can be a problem from the side the new model of the infrastructure and the market of attention, because Brazil have like a dilemma of the pioneer, the advanced. In the Brazil, the market can be limited the entry of the regional providers, and it's another important point for finish. It seems there's a change of the consumer behavior here. As shown in the panorama of the National Telecommunication Agency on September, the access of the mobile internet almost 18% higher than optical fiber here. But I have another numbers important you can indicate about the behavior. The over-the-top application here, like a boom rates and the dance, almost 24%. The problem is the consequence about it. It can create like new problems and challenges for telecommunication sector, because the spectrum of the data transmissions become like scarce, or you have like a dispute for resource between datafication services and the big techs. Because it generates the assets of a digital economy. So maybe it's also the new challenge for the consolidated national personal data authority in Brazil too. Thank you, Luca.
Thank you very much, Larissa, for this. And now we have been talking a lot about digital transformation and AI, data economy. And there is a sort of big label that encompasses all this, which is the fourth industrial revolution, which seems to be one of the most loved topics by the South African presidency that keeps on encouraging initiatives, and even released a very interesting report discussing comparing national strategies on the fourth industrial revolution. We published this on our website. And very recently, the Minister of Communications and Digital Technology in South Africa has released the terms of reference of the Presidential Commission on the fourth industrial revolution. So there is some concrete step made to try to make this notion more concrete, more realistic, more real. And what kind of strategy, Senka Hadzic, you are analyzing South Africa for the CyberBRICS project, and you have been analyzing digital policies and infrastructure policies in South Africa for quite a few times. And what kind of strategy and governance mechanism are going to be deployed and are proposed by the new terms of reference recently published?
Thanks, Luca. Well, maybe first let me give some background on the commission itself. The Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution was established 2 years ago in December 2018. And back then, interested parties were invited to nominate candidates to be considered for appointment. And it was said that the commission is intended to be composed of representatives from a wide range of stakeholders, including the public sector, business, academia, research, SMMEs, NGOs, and so on. And basically the role of the Commission is to coordinate the development of the country's national response action plan to deal with the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And as part of this effort, identify policies, strategies, and plans, and also provide recommendations for both legislators and policymakers within the government to implement a sort of coherent national response. And then in April last year, just before the presidential elections, the Minister of Communications published the terms of reference as well as the names of the initial appointees. And then, yeah, fast forward in August this year, the final report was published by the presidency, and it can actually also be accessed here on the CyberBRICS website. And this document sets out a vision for charting the way forward for South Africa in with respect to the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And that vision is kind of framed around inclusive economies. The document claims that 4IR will revolutionize multiple sectors in the country, like energy, water, mining, financial services, public administration, and others. But it also highlights some risks, and what is particularly interested for us here are those risks around digitization. And basically, by digitizing government strategies, there are also increased cybersecurity risks and threats of data breaches, both by the state as well as by other entities. And also the increased digitization increases the capacity of surveillance, both of governments and other parties involved. How does Fourth Industrial Revolution relate to data governance? Well, I guess it's obvious that at the very core of the Fourth Industrial Revolution is a upsurge in the collection and processing of data. And the governance of the digital infrastructure will have to include measures on, data and privacy protection, cybersecurity, anti-surveillance measures, to create a trusted environment for all these new applications around e-government, e-commerce, smart cities, but also for personal communications. And all the strategies for the country's digital transformation will include some data-heavy processes and technologies that require effective data governance solutions being in place. In the SA context, it would mean to have the POPI Act fully enacted and the cybercrime bill implemented, which, I mean, there has been some progress on it this year, but well, let's see how the actual enforcement will continue to take place. And ideally, there should be a integrated data governance framework to prevent harm and mitigate the risks that are associated with all this rapid expansion of digital services. But then also we have to take into account a large number of people that are coming online for the first time, because as we work on bridging the digital divide and connecting more people, the amount of data that is produced also grows. So we also have to have the right governance frameworks in place to protect those who are newly connected. And actually, we could see some impact of that increased digitization already this year with the pandemic, because this large-scale digital transformation in terms of remote work and online education and so on was accelerated on a very short timeline during the lockdown. And this increased digital interaction really raises questions on data governance, such as data collection and possible misuse, and generally the importance of data protection and online safety. And generally, one can say that the level of efficiency of data-driven technologies and policy solutions to fight COVID-19 differs from country to country. But one trend that is obvious is that the expanded use of data has direct implications on data governance. And at the same time, COVID has also exposed a significant digital divide. Some recommendations from the report itself would be to have a high-level interdepartmental multi-stakeholder governance and coordination structure to be sort of the custodian of the 4IR strategy. The report also highlights the importance of a national open data strategy, ideally with detailed processes about data treatment along the entire value chain from data collection to use. It really highlights the importance of this approach in terms of innovation, how open data can be used to boost innovation. And also, of course, the telecommunications industry is a enabler of the fourth industrial revolution. And the document also acknowledges that affordable access to broadband is basically a precondition for participation in the 4IR efforts.
Excellent. And when we speak about 4IR, we cannot forget to mention the key relevance of connectivity and to the expansion of infrastructure. Indeed, the benefits of the fourth industrial revolution, of automation, of enhanced connectivity may be shared only if everyone is connected. Now, in this perspective, another interesting saga that took place lately is the spectrum auction saga that sees as our main character ICASA, the South African regulator of telecommunications. There have been some very interesting developments lately, and Senka, I know this is a topic that is of particular interest for you. So tell us more about what happened lately about this.
Well, the never-ending saga seems to be kind of coming to an end. At least finally, in October, ICASA has published the invitation to apply for the high-demand spectrum, as well as for the licensing of the wholesale open access network. And there was a 2 weeks window for inquiries regarding the ITA by the public, and these were all responded to. And also the reasons documents were published last week. The way these reasons documents work is that basically after publishing the information memorandum in November last year, ICASA received 53 written submissions from different stakeholders and interested parties, and then conducted a competition assessment and fair evaluation of spectrum, having considered all these written representations. And the reasons document outlines the reasons for ICASA's decisions with respect to these submissions and all the work that was done towards finalizing the ITA. So, for example, there was from these 53 submissions, it was clear that the industry pushes back against obligations to have mobile virtual network operators hosted on their infrastructure. That was one of the requirements set by ICASA. All the bidders had to support at least 3 MVNOs. And yeah, obviously the 4 major operators suggested that these obligations be removed, and they also argued that it could undermine the business case of the WOAN, the wholesale business access open access network. And a similar argument actually also came from companies who are well known to be likely to invest in the WOAN. And ICASA responded that it is their mandate to transform the ICT sector, and that they believe that it can be done only by supporting the uptake and the provision of the virtual network operators. So in this case, they basically just justified and defended their initial stance. But in some other aspects, they were actually quite, they were even ready to change some clauses in the call. And also this week, ICASA has been conducting virtual workshops from Wednesday until today in respect of the licensing of the wholesale open access network. So ICASA says that the goal of the workshop is to provide clarity for all interested stakeholders and ensure that the process is fully understood. Basically, the regulator's experience is that most licensing processes get delayed because of the lack of understanding of the requirements, which then often leads to either applicants asking for extensions or the regulator having to request additional information because the submissions are kind of incomplete. So these kind of workshops provide an opportunity for stakeholders to raise any issues and seek clarification, and these are all being responded to during the workshop. And especially since the entire concept of the wholesale open access network is pretty novel and nobody in fact knows what to expect, it is important to have such an engagement. And I believe that one can say that ICASA is doing a great job when it comes to this kind of engagement and stakeholder involvement. The entire process has been quite transparent and consultative. It's just been extremely slow and long overdue. And another update on the spectrum issue is that ICASA decided to extend the allocation of emergency spectrum under the COVID-19 disaster regulations until the end of March, but with an added clause, now the companies will have to pay for it. So up until the 30th of November, operators could use the temporary spectrum at no charge. But now, since they all have generated and reported revenue growth during this period, ICASA actually decided to charge a fee as provided in the amended regulations.
Okay, excellent. So we see that maybe this has been the final chapter of the spectrum saga, but we know that every good saga always has a sequel. So we look forward to our next webinar, perhaps to have more insight on this. And as we are already running out of time, and we had a very dense webinar this month, I suggest that we defer further discussions and further updates to our next webinar, where we will also discuss finally, we will launch our upcoming book on CyberBRICS, cybersecurity regulations in the BRICS. So I thank all the participants, all the speakers. Unfortunately, due to some technical problems, our guest speaker, Shen, was not able to join, but we will make sure that he will be able to participate to upcoming webinars. And thank you very much to everyone for your excellent presentations and your insights. And I hope you will be with us again for our next webinar. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.